I was speaking to some of the partners at Rothmans. We were discussing at what point Tim and I should probably do a clip on making tax digital. And that leads us to where we are now, which means, Tim, in fact, how do we talk about making tax digital? We say, well, for now, it's a VAT issue, not from April 18, but from April 19.
That's right. There are two main changes that the government announced in the summer following the June general election. And they took us a bit by surprise because before these announcements, HMRC and the government were adamant that they were going to stick to the April 2018 deadline for implementing making tax digital. But what we now know is that it'll be delayed for everybody until April 19. And even from then, it'll only apply to those businesses that are VAT registered or above the VAT threshold, and that it will only apply in respect of their VAT returns. Whereas originally it was going to be for income tax on sole traders and partnerships, initially at least, eventually companies, but it's not going to be for income tax, it's just going to be for VAT. Well, if you're already filing VAT quarterly returns, you might well think, what's it got to do with us? We're already doing quarterly returns, and so it's not going to make any difference. But there are, aren't there, Giles, circumstances where it will differ?
There are quite a few, and also it's worth noting that even people who are e-filing their VAT returns, which is the vast majority of people now, I think we're looking at 98% plus of VAT returns are filed electronically. It could well be that people are preparing all of the data on paper before then finally typing those numbers into a digital system to file it. But one of the requirements will be that the data has to be stored and collected digitally as well from April 19.
Yes, that's an absolutely key point. Underpinning the whole Making Tax Digital project is the requirement that businesses maintain their accounting records in a digital way. And that means having accounting software that can then be used to export the data into the revenue's own system. And although the revenue will allow the basic records to be maintained, for example, on an Excel spreadsheet, and many businesses will simply use Excel spreadsheets and then take the output from that into the VAT return online, what they'll need to do if they fall within this from April 19 is have some accounting software that will actually take the Excel output, route it through the accounting software to go into the revenue system. So there will be a systems review needed, I think, for businesses that are going to come within it from April 19.
Absolutely, and that's something that obviously Rothmans will be able to lead you through that process and make sure that the systems they're using, that you're using, all speak to each other and to the revenue. The other thing, Tim, is that we keep hearing this idea, oh, well, let me be accurate. I keep reading in the press that everybody else is coming in from 2020 on Making Tax Digital. That's not what they said.
No, I mean, from 2020, we might expect that smaller businesses and also the requirement that it applies for income tax as well as for VAT will then come into effect. But actually what the announcement from the government said was, and let me read it here, it will not be mandatory until at least 2020. In other words, that's the earliest, but it wouldn't surprise us if it turns out to be later. And that's not to say we should all ignore it. I think Rothmans will need clients to understand that these system changes are going to have to be implemented at some point, and that's why you might get contact to look at the way in which the records are actually kept and handled with software.
But it's no longer the mad rush that we were worried might happen when it was going to be 18 and 19.
The pressure's off.
It seems the revenue weren't quite as ready as they'd hoped to be, and the Treasury have therefore taken a little bit of a step back and said, well, let's take longer over this. And as Tim has already said, it's not let's leave it alone for now. It's let's just take our time, get to grips with it as soon as we can, but let's not worry too much immediately about the issues. For VAT registered businesses, speak to the guys at Rothmans, make sure you're happy that your systems are in place, ready for that April 19. And for everybody else, just start to look towards a digital world a little bit more, and no doubt the team will be able to help you with that. We look forward to speaking to you again as part of these programs.